Having a baby changed my life completely. I'm the youngest in my family, so I was always used to being taken care of. But when I had my son, I knew everything would be different. Still, I wasn't expecting how difficult motherhood would start out. Hi, I'm Gwen, and at 26 I had my first child. My son, Heath, meant everything to me and my husband, Hugh. From the moment I heard Heath cry in the hospital, I knew I wanted to dedicate my life to him. That's what parents do, right? But things don't always go as planned. This is where Hugh's mom, Trish, comes in. She had recently gotten divorced and came to stay with us. She wasn't in a great mental state and had nowhere else to go. This was her second divorce, first with Hugh's dad, and now her ex-husband, whom she married soon after Hugh was born. When I married Hugh, I found out Trish had just had another child, which was surprising at her age. But her marriage fell apart again, and she lost custody of the child because she wasn't in a good mental state. When we brought Heath home from the hospital, Trish was thrilled. She spent hours just staring at him in awe. While I was glad she was around, I also felt she missed the daughter she wouldn't see grow up. Trish was so excited when I told her we named the baby Heath. She loved the name and asked to hold him. I trusted her because she had handled more babies than I had. Hugh and I smiled as she played with Heath, but then he started crying. I thought he was hungry, so I asked for him back. Trish insisted he wasn't hungry and just wanted attention. She kept playing with him even though he was crying louder. I looked at Hugh for help, and he gently suggested Trish let me take care of Heath. But Trish didn't listen and shook the baby lightly, which made me nervous. I finally managed to take Heath from her, even though she tried to hold on. This was just the beginning of her strange behavior. Trish would play with Heath even when he was sleeping, waking him up just when I had finally calmed him down. She never took responsibility for his crying, just laying him in the cradle and walking away as if he'd stop on his own. She insisted that babies only want attention and that feeding them should come later. I tried to explain that Heath was just a few weeks old and needed regular feeding and sleep, but she dismissed me, saying new mothers think they know everything. Trish continued to ignore Heath's needs, treating him like a toy to play with when it suited her. I decided to talk to Hugh about it, but he wasn't happy with how I was talking about his mom. He hadn't seen much of her behavior since he was usually at work. While I was on unpaid maternity leave, I really wished I could have had a paid one, but my employers weren't very kind. I had already used up my 12 weeks of paid leave, and now I was going over that time. Hugh had to work overtime because of this and didn't get much time at home. Look, can you please try to get along with my mom? She's been through a lot, and that's probably why she wants to bond with Heath, Hugh said. I do get along with your mom as long as she's not acting weird around our baby. Do you know last night I woke up to him crying, and she was just standing over his cradle, staring at him? It was terrifying, I replied. She said she wanted to play with him, but didn't because she knew you wouldn't be okay with it. She was just standing there looking. It was scary, I added. I know she can be a bit strange, but that doesn't mean she'll hurt him. Just be nice and persuasive and she'll soften up. She's easygoing like that, soft-hearted like you. Hugh tried to reassure me. I really don't know about this, I said, worried. Heath was too young for a nanny, and I couldn't take him to work when I went back. I was a barista at a local cafe and I wasn't sure how long I could stay off work. With only Hugh working, we were just making ends meet, and I was concerned about the future. At first, I liked the idea of letting Trish take care of Heath while I was away, but now I realized that might not be a good idea. The other day, I was trying to get Heath to sleep when I heard loud noises from my room. I peeked in and saw Trish stomping around, looking like she was deep in thought. When she noticed me, I quickly looked away, but she swung the door open. Do you think I should talk to my lawyer again? She asked abruptly. Talk to your lawyer? About what? I asked, confused. About my baby. Like the one you have. I think I can get her back if I try really hard. Maybe I could file a lawsuit against Tony and prove he's not a reliable person for her to grow up with, she said. Tony was her ex who had custody of their child. I felt sorry for Trish. She was clearly in a bad mental state, but I had to warn her about the consequences of her actions. Trish, that's a long shot. Even if you prove Tony can't raise the child, you won't get her back. They'll say both parents are unfit, and she'll go through the foster care system until she turns 18, I explained. But then I can adopt her as soon as she's put up for adoption. You can keep Heath, and I'll get my baby. Everyone will be happy, Trish said. Trish, no offense, but you're starting to sound like you're losing your mind. You need to relax and let go of this. You need help, I said gently. Are you calling me crazy? Me, the mother of your husband? Do you know what I've done to raise him, the sacrifices I've made? And now you want to take this baby away from me? He's my baby too, she shouted. Since when are we talking about Keith? If you want your child back, the only way is to be real and legal. Maybe you should get some help and then prove you can have joint custody, I said. Don't lecture me. You're just a barista who caught my son's eye. You're no one, and you won't make a good mom. Not like me anyway, Trish snapped. What's with you? Where are you going with all this? We let you stay in our home because you had nowhere else to go, and this is how you treat me. I'm sorry life hasn't been great for you. But lashing out at me won't help, I said, trying to stay calm. Shut up, shut up. I'm leaving, she screamed, coming dangerously close to me before storming out. I was scared that Trish might hurt me or Heath, but thankfully she didn't. Losing custody of her child had clearly messed with her mind, and things were getting worse. Hugh didn't even listen to me. When I told him what happened, he got mad at me for letting Trish go out on her own when she wasn't thinking straight. He didn't believe me when I told him she was fixated on the whole baby thing. Later, Trish came back home and said she'd been sitting on a park bench all day, even though it had only been a few hours since she left. She quickly apologized to me and then went to take a nap in my room. Later, she asked if she could help put Heath to sleep, but I was cautious this time. I wasn't about to let her handle the baby without supervision. Things didn't get easier after that. There came a point where I knew I'd need to ask Trish to leave for good. Things really took a turn one day when we were taking care of a sleeping Heath. How much does it cost to take care of a baby these days? Trish asked. Oh well, the diapers, other supplies, and baby-proofing the house add up. Maybe around $100 a month if you're lucky, and even more when the baby starts crawling or walking, I replied, just wondering. If you have something on your mind, you can tell me, I added. Oh, nothing. It didn't used to be so expensive back when I had Hugh, but I'd still have the baby, no hesitation. They're complete angels until they start crying. But yes, I get it. I'd give anything for little Heath. So would I, Gwen. So would I. I'd be willing to give up anything for our baby, Trish said. Our baby? The way she said it felt oddly uncomfortable, but I didn't pay much attention to it. Days passed quickly. Trish started going out regularly every evening around 5 o'clock, all dressed up with her purse. There was no way she had started seeing someone new at her age, so I figured she was just going for walks, trying to feel better. Honestly, we were supportive of her trying to improve. She also began acting more normal with Heath. She didn't act weirdly, would hand me the baby whenever he cried, and even helped make his food and buy diapers occasionally. I was relieved that she seemed to be feeling better and more like herself. I even considered leaving Heath with her when I went back to work soon. But then one day I overheard her while she was playing with him in the living room. I'd been exhausted from taking care of him all day and was trying to drift off to sleep. A while later, I heard Heath crying, which woke me up. As soon as I got up, he became quiet. Then I heard Trish say, "That's a good boy, that's a good baby. You're mine, okay? You're my baby, and Mom is going to take real good care of you. We're going to fly away to a nice place where you'll have lots of toys to play with. Don't you want that?" I wondered how much of what she said was serious and how much was just play. She had definitely managed to calm Heath down. When I got to my senses, I realized his cradle had been moved from my room. The cradle wasn't very heavy, but it was odd that she moved it without waking me up. When I walked into the living room, my heart skipped a beat. The cradle had been modified, and she'd hung large Christmas balls on top to entertain the baby. It looked pretty, but the problem was the balls were made of glass and could have fallen on his face at any moment. I quickly picked Heath up. "What are you doing?" "He's enjoying it," Trish said. "Trish, where did you get these Christmas balls from?" "I found them in your storeroom." "I thought he'd enjoy them," she replied. "Trish, those are really heavy. They may not seem dangerous to us, but for the baby they are. How did you tie them up there? They could fall on him any moment." "Hey, what's with all the accusing?" I got the baby to be quiet and you're still not happy with me, Trish said, sounding defensive. I appreciate that you got him to be quiet, I really do. I'm so happy you're getting along with him, but these balls are dangerous. The old plastic toy on the cradle wouldn't hurt him if it ever fell. How did you even get it down? I thought it was attached. Oh, I ripped it off. Didn't take much. I think this looks so much prettier. I don't see the problem. I understand, but please, let's take it off, okay? It could hurt him. Trish made a face but pulled the Christmas balls down. As soon as she touched them, 2 of them fell straight into the cradle and left dents in the bedding. That could have been where my child was lying. I saw that her intentions were good, but the way she went about things wasn't okay. She left the living room and ran into my room to sleep. Afterward, she began distancing herself from me. Every morning, she'd go out and not come back for hours. Whenever I asked where she was going, she'd just say, "The post office." Trish kept saying she was going to the post office, but it was too far for her to be gone all day. She also started whispering strange things to Heath, and she'd smile at me in a weird way. I was getting uncomfortable, so I talked to Hugh again. "She's trying to get better. Why aren't you being supportive?" Hugh said. But she still acts strangely around Heath. She keeps telling him he's her baby and says her own name over and over so he'll say it first. You know about the Christmas balls incident, and I'm really concerned. You're overthinking this. She's taking care of our baby. Yes, the Christmas balls were a mistake, but you handled it, and she won't do it again. And you need to help her get to the post office if that's where she's going. Hugh, she's obviously not going to the post office every day. Why would she? Because she used to work there and has friends there. Maybe she got a part-time job. Then why wouldn't she tell us about it? I don't know, okay? Just relax and stop keeping an eye on my mom. She's innocent, there's no need to accuse her. That was it, I lost it. Hugh refused to believe me no matter what I said. With my return to work approaching, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I bought a baby monitor and secretly installed it in the wall so no one would notice it. When I started working again, Trish stayed home most days. Everything seemed normal. She'd take Heath to play and then put him back to sleep. Since I was only working part-time, I was always home before it got too late. But one day, I heard something on the baby monitor that made my heart sink. Oh, we're going to fly away, Heath, you and me. Mama has been working so hard at school, teaching little kids like you'll be someday. Oh, Mama has so many plans once she runs away with you, Trish said. I heard Heath giggle as she picked him up and spun around the room. My baby, oh little baby, do you like spinning? Do you like it? Of course you do. We're going to go far away from your little cradle. I'll get you a new one with big shiny balls on it, and you'll have a pretty mom, unlike your mom, and we'll make Daddy run away too. Yes, we will. What was going on? I was horrified. She continued spinning around the room with Heath. But when she finally sat down, Heath started crying. She placed him on the edge of the bed and held her head like she was dizzy. I panicked, thinking Heath might fall, but she picked him up just in time and put him back in his cradle. You keep crying, and I'm not giving you any more attention. In my house, you'll learn discipline from the get-go. Children these days, I swear to God, she said and slammed the door. I was deeply concerned. I recorded the footage and considered sending it to Hugh, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't overreacting. That day, I went home early, worried about my child. Trish opened the door, looking worn out and tired. She yawned and went straight to sleep without saying a word. I rushed to my room, quickly fed Heath, and calmed him down. Once he was asleep, I locked the room from the inside and started searching. Trish always carried a big red purse whenever she went out, and I needed to find it. After searching my room for almost an hour, I found nothing. Then I noticed it hanging from the coat rack. I grabbed it as quietly as possible, and when I looked inside, I was shocked. She had a teacher's ID card for a school and a plane ticket scheduled for the day after tomorrow. She had been planning to run away with my child. I kept the ticket and ID card to myself and sent the video to Hugh, asking him to come home as soon as possible. This can't be real. Oh, for God's sake, you still think I'm overreacting. I asked when Hugh saw the footage and held the ticket and ID card in his hand. Hugh was speechless. He realized Trish had been working for months to arrange all this. She clearly needed help. We decided to call Hugh's dad, Jonah. Jonah quickly picked up the call. When Hugh told him what was happening, Jonah was saddened but agreed that Trish needed to be removed from the house. He suggested we consider a retirement home for her. Do you think she should go to a retirement home? Hugh asked. That's what I do. But I think she needs psychiatric care first, Jonah replied. So you want her out of the house for good? Hugh confirmed. Yes, please, I said. Okay, I'll come over to talk to her in person. Let's get started, Jonah agreed. Jonah had been around when Heath was born, and he and Trish would often argue over small things, but he came over anyway. Hugh and Jonah talked to Trish, and there was a lot of crying and yelling. He's my baby, Trish screamed. No, he's my son. Trish, you need to get out of here before we have to forcefully remove you, Hugh said. Oh, I'd like to see you try, Trish shot back. By then, I'd lost my patience. Trish had done so much to upset me that I wanted her out of our lives for good. You will never set foot in this house again. Just go away and keep your hands off my son. Enough, both of you. Jonah intervened. Mom, please don't make this complicated. Come with us. The fighting continued for a while, but I finally decided to let her go into a retirement home for good. The people at the nursing home said they'd provide her with some psychological help as well. I didn't care anymore. I tore up the plane ticket in front of her and called the school where she worked to ensure she wouldn't be allowed near any kids again. Maybe I went too far in my anger, but it was all necessary.
There's no job for someone with such low education. What can a person without any real learning do? My boss laughed mockingly at me, a woman who grew up in a single-parent household. I had been putting in hard work all this time, driven by the memory of my mom who had raised me alone. He never acknowledged my efforts and even belittled my mom. When my mom passed away, my boss not only spoke cold words but also undermined me. I'm Sarah, a 28-year-old woman working in a small to medium-sized business, raised by a single parent. I joined the company right after high school as a part-timer and now work here full-time. Despite the company being relatively small, it employs a significant number of people. Initially starting as a part-timer, I fought hard as if my life depended on it. Thanks to my dedication, I earned recognition from my boss and became a full-time employee in my third year. Even after becoming full-time, I continued to work diligently, not wanting to disappoint those who believed in me. By age 25, I was handling more responsibilities than my peers and gaining trust within the company. With decent pay and bonuses, I could take care of my mom and live comfortably. One day, my direct boss retired and a new boss, Christopher, was assigned. It was sad to part with the boss who had nurtured and recognized me. I felt a slight anxiety about getting along with the new boss, but my hard work spoke for itself. Above all, my retiring boss assured me he would speak highly of me to the new boss, easing my worries. On Christopher's first day, I was called into a conference room, expecting to discuss our working relationship. Instead, Christopher threw unexpected words at me. Are you Taylor, the high school graduate from a single-parent household who started part-time and worked your way up? It shocked me to be confronted with my background out of nowhere. Christopher's tone was intimidating, judgmental. My first impression of this new boss was not favorable, but knowing we would work together, I aimed to keep things professional. Yes, I am Taylor. I look forward to working with you, I replied with a smile, trying to deflect the comment. Uncertain about Christopher's character, I resolved to handle the situation calmly. However, Christopher continued with unkind remarks. A single-parent upbringing, huh? You probably can't handle this job. You didn't even go to college. What can an uneducated person like you do? I was taken aback by his harsh words. I was stunned. It was true that I came from a single-parent household and had only graduated from high school, but I had consistently performed well in my department. I may not have a higher education, but I've been delivering results in my job, I told Christopher. I have a high school diploma, but I believe my work speaks for itself. I acknowledge my limitations, but I am still achieving good results, I explained to Christopher. I noticed that, however, your previous boss seemed to favor you quite a bit, he said with a crude, lecherous look. Perhaps you used some seductive tactics to get ahead. Christopher's baseless accusations stunned me. That's not true. My previous boss mentored me to help me perform my job better. There was nothing inappropriate, I insisted, feeling insulted by Christopher's insinuations about someone who had supported and guided me. I couldn't comprehend why Christopher would attack me so harshly, but it seemed to be his nature. The prospect of working under such a boss troubled me deeply. Christopher smirked at me, making it clear he didn't hold me in high regard. Despite his disdain, I resolved to prove myself. From what I've heard, this boss believes in meritocracy. I thought, if I could demonstrate my value to him, there would be no grounds for further criticism. Feeling there was no other recourse, I decided to turn Christopher's bias into motivation and redouble my efforts. As I returned to the office from fieldwork, Christopher immediately accosted me with raised voice. "Hey, where have you been?" he barked. "I was out on scheduled fieldwork today," I replied, perplexed by his aggression. Ignoring my explanation, Christopher marched over. "You're incompetent at your job. Just do these menial tasks. Organize these documents," he commanded, thrusting a towering stack of papers into my hands. It wasn't my responsibility, and I was pressed for time, but I couldn't disobey. Reluctantly, I began sorting through the documents under Christopher's satisfied gaze. Perhaps sensing my compliance, he began heaping more administrative duties on me from that day forward. Whenever I attempted to focus on my core responsibilities, Christopher accused me of neglecting tasks or chastised me for minor errors. He even belittled me, saying, "You can't handle this because you're from a single-parent household." Until then, my job satisfaction stemmed from delivering results and earning recognition within the company. I had been managing to support Mom and myself without complaint, but now the stress was overwhelming every single day. Quitting my job would worry Mom, and I couldn't bear that thought. So, despite my desperation, I continued working diligently. Then one day, Mom approached me with a request. Despite my financial support, she didn't intend to depend on me forever. Considering my future marriage prospects, she wanted to contribute and save some money for herself. I couldn't refuse her, so I approached the company. Luckily, they were hiring an office worker at the time, which seemed like a perfect fit, unrelated to my department. Hoping to avoid dealing with my difficult boss, I arranged an interview for Mom, and she was successfully hired. Mom began her new role as an office worker at the same company where I worked. She found joy in the comfortable environment, enjoying her daily routine. However, a week after she started, Christopher called me aside. "Your mom got hired as an office worker," he sneered. "Is that short woman the one who raised you, the uneducated idiot?" Christopher always wore a disdainful expression, mocking not just me but now my mom too. I couldn't fathom how he knew about Mom's employment without my mention. The stress I felt more than doubled. Hearing Mom spoken ill of hurt more than any insult directed at myself. Above all, I worried endlessly about whether Christopher would confront Mom directly. I didn't want Mom to feel distressed, but contrary to my concerns, everything seemed to be going smoothly with her at work. Christopher occasionally made snide remarks, but Mom, a strong woman who raised me single-handedly, seemed unfazed. She brushed off Christopher's comments like a child's insults, laughing them off. Witnessing her resilience relieved me. She appeared unaffected by Christopher's attempts to unsettle her. Even after that incident, Mom continued to thrive in her new workplace environment, paying no mind to Christopher's remarks. Then, one day, everything changed abruptly when Mom collapsed and had to be rushed to the hospital by ambulance. Thankfully, her life was not in danger, but she needed hospitalization for some time. I decided to take time off from work to care for Mom during her recovery. When I informed Christopher of my situation, his reaction was outrageous. "You plan to take time off for something so trivial? You must not take your job seriously," he scoffed, denying my request for leave. "I'll use the paid leave that I haven't taken yet. I'm the only one available to care for Mom," I asserted, despite Christopher's objections. Permission for the leave had already been granted by someone higher up than Christopher, who understood the gravity of the situation and supported my decision to be with Mom during this critical time. I had rarely taken leave before, but no matter how I explained it, Christopher wouldn't listen. "It's not about that. Just leave an old woman whose life is short anyway," he callously remarked. His thoughtless comment made my blood boil. How could he say something like that when I was telling him about Mom collapsing? I had endured his behavior until now, but I reached my breaking point. "I can't work under someone like you anymore," I blurted out, unable to hold back any longer. I knew it might inconvenience others, but since Christopher had arrived, I'd been relegated to menial tasks. With no motivation left, I quit on the spot despite Christopher's surprised attempt to dissuade me. "You don't have to go that far," he said, fearful of the consequences of my resignation. But my decision was final. With enough savings to sustain myself for a while, I ignored Christopher's protests and focused on caring for Mom. After things settled down with Mom's care, I considered re-entering the workforce. While I initially thought about returning to similar work, my confidence had grown. Inspired by lessons in business management from my retired former boss, I took a bold step. I started my own company. I wanted to wait until things stabilized before telling Mom about my new venture. About a year passed, and my company was starting to find its footing when Mom's health suddenly deteriorated, requiring hospitalization once again. Balancing the responsibilities of caring for Mom and running my business was challenging, but I managed without taking any time for myself. Another year passed, and the company was thriving, offering reassurance of its stability. Though Mom's health hadn't improved, I wanted to ease her worries and planned to discuss it with her soon. Then suddenly Mom passed away. It felt unreal. A truly unexpected event. As her only child, I had no other family to rely on, so I had to quickly prepare to say goodbye. Suppressing my tears, I made necessary arrangements. Despite not having worked long as a clerk, many people from the company where Mom was well-liked offered to attend her funeral. Perhaps it was Mom's warm personality that drew them, but their presence was a comfort. On the day of the funeral, more people came than I had anticipated, a testament to Mom's popularity. Amid the pain of losing her, I felt pride seeing how many lives Mom had touched. However, as the funeral was concluding, one attendee caught my attention. "Long time no see. So that old woman finally kicked the bucket, huh?" I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw Christopher standing there, his words infuriating. Though he may have had some prior interaction with Mom, I hadn't invited him to the funeral and couldn't fathom why he had come. I would never have invited someone like him to Mom's funeral. My old boss smirked at my stunned expression, the same disdainful look he wore when belittling our single-parent household. Unpleasant memories flooded back, and I could only glare at Christopher. Approaching me, Christopher handed over a bunch of flowers. "Here, some flowers. She may not have been able to give her daughter a proper education, but at least I can do this much." His words cut deep, delivered at such an inappropriate moment. I wanted to yell in anger but restrained myself. I couldn't let Christopher spoil Mom's funeral or inconvenience the other mourners. With a heavy heart, I accepted the flowers in silence. To my disbelief, the flowers looked like they had been hastily picked off the street. Had Christopher come all this way just to mock me like this? As Christopher saw my expression, his grin widened maliciously. That moment, my suppressed emotions erupted. I couldn't remain silent after hearing such disrespect toward my beloved Mom. "If this is how you truly feel about me, then I understand. In that case, I'll have to cancel our business deal with your company." Christopher stared blankly, clearly perplexed. "Deal? What are you talking about?" My former boss looked clueless, so I calmly explained the implications of my words. I have been asked by colleagues and seniors in the sales department to sign numerous contracts, though I want to terminate them all. "I need to reconsider our relationship with a company that employs someone like you," I declared firmly. Initially, my former boss didn't take me seriously. However, the next day, he sent a formal notice to Christopher's company. Christopher's face went pale upon receiving it. He clearly hadn't expected that I had started a successful business. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Christopher came to apologize promptly. I'm sorry," he muttered, his apology lacking sincerity. My anger simmered. "Sorry? Do you think that's enough? You insulted my mom while she was alive, gave me only menial tasks, and what about the funeral?" I continued, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Christopher appeared speechless while the president accompanying him apologized deeply. "I am so sorry for not intervening," he said, tears welling in his eyes. His genuine remorse touched me deeply, considering how much he had supported me in the past. Out of respect for the president and his sincere apology, I decided to reconsider continuing the business relationship. As we discussed next steps, Christopher visibly relaxed. "I'm relieved. Let's let bygones be bygones and move forward together," Christopher said with an awkward smile, extending his hand for a handshake. His assumption of reconciliation was premature. "You're fired, Christopher," the president announced abruptly, shocking us all. "What? Fired? Why?" I apologize and we're continuing the deal, Christopher protested, disbelief written all over his face. The president remained resolute. I've decided to terminate your employment knowing I will not continue this business relationship under these terms. I agreed to proceed only out of respect for the president. I want you to understand, I will never forgive you, no matter what you say, I asserted firmly. Christopher fell silent, visibly affected by my words. It's the consequence of your own actions, the president interjected dismissively, leaving with a dejected Christopher in tow. The next day, it became apparent that my former boss had indeed been fired from the company. Shortly afterward, I received a resentful call from Christopher, lamenting the loss of his job and the challenges of finding new employment at his age. You've ruined my life. Take responsibility for what's happened, he shouted angrily over the phone. In response, I made an unexpected proposal to the furious Christopher. How about I hire you at my company? I can't offer much in terms of pay, but it seems you're out of options because of me. Upon hearing this, Christopher exploded with emotion and abruptly hung up. The idea of being employed by someone he had ridiculed must have been a deep humiliation for him. I didn't expect him to accept the offer. A month later, however, unable to secure another job, Christopher reached out to me and asked to be hired. It surprised me, but I decided to give him a chance. Now, in a role reversal, it made Christopher experience the same menial tasks and lack of responsibility that I had endured. Why do I have to do these menial tasks? Anyone could do this, he complained bitterly. Ignoring his protests, I kept him on simple tasks, reminding him, if you can't handle these basic duties, you'll be dismissed for incompetence. The boss's orders are absolute. There's no room for defiance. Christopher appeared downtrodden, a stark contrast to his arrogant demeanor in his previous role. Eventually, unable to bear the humiliation, he quit the company. Reflecting on this experience, I realized the irony of Christopher facing what he had inflicted upon me. Treating others as he had treated me led to his downfall, a simple truth he failed to grasp. Meanwhile, my company continues to grow steadily and thrive. I've learned that persistent effort yields results, whereas without it, success remains modest at best. Whether one ends up like Christopher or not ultimately depends on understanding this fundamental lesson. Returning home one day, I was stunned to find my room barren. What's happening here? I exclaimed. Behind me, my sister-in-law's voice cut through the silence, filled with a sense of victory. You, a childless, unproductive woman, are nothing but an obstacle in my path. Leave? Her words dripped with malice as she attempted to usurp my parents' home. The notion was absurd. After all, I was single. I'll unravel your devious plan, I vowed. My name is Catherine, a 40-year-old office worker navigating life's twists and turns. Though I've encountered potential partners, circumstances led me down the path of singlehood. Despite occasional bouts of loneliness, I've made peace with it. Marriage isn't the be-all and end-all. Besides, there's the responsibility of caring for my parents. With my older brother living afar, I took it upon myself to support our aging mother after her father's passing. Now, it's just the two of us, relishing the tranquility of our days together. Despite my mother's sharp mind, a year ago she suffered a leg injury, leaving her disabled. Now reliant on a cane, car, or wheelchair for mobility, she struggles even within the confines of our home, requiring constant care. Fortunately, being single and able to reside with her, I've been able to meet her needs. Were I married and living elsewhere or far away, the situation would be far more challenging. So I suppose my single status has its advantages. Yet while I've found contentment in my life, there's one who's discontented, my sister-in-law. Much younger than me, she married my older brother, making her, despite her status, my junior. They live distantly but return for holidays like Christmas and summer vacations. Whenever my brother's family visits, my sister-in-law seems to reserve her harshest words for me. This past Christmas was no exception. As they arrived, she wasted no time in whispering in my ear, "Still living off your parents, Catherine." Shocked, I retorted, "I'm not mooching off anyone. Just because I'm single and living at home at 40 doesn't make me a parasite." She scoffed, "Oh, really? Well, I'm raising 3 children. Can you even comprehend the responsibility? What's your point? The state's population is declining, isn't it? Our family is doing its part to reverse that trend. Singles like you are the problem," she sneered. "Do you take pleasure in population decline? Is life even worth it if you're single forever?" Her words stung. They struck a chord deep within me. Despite being single for various reasons, there was once a man I hoped to marry, but there were complications with my health. I'm unable to have children. When he asked me to be in a relationship, he knew this from the start, and I was transparent about it. He reassured me, I just want to be with you, even if we can't have kids. As long as we're together, I'll be happy. So I agreed to date him, but marriage brought unforeseen complexities. The challenges and conflicts we faced led me to remain single. My sister-in-law's hurtful words left me speechless, yet she had the audacity to exploit me financially. We have 3 kids, remember? Your Christmas gifts should reflect that. We expect generosity. You should contribute to our kids' kindergarten enrollment celebration, at least $1,000. You're not strapped for cash, auntie, so don't act like it. Don't you want to give our kids a good education? I'll let you help raise them, so pitch in for their extracurricular activities. It's as if she believes using the kids as leverage will justify her demands for more money. I don't mind giving gifts for special occasions, but I fail to comprehend why I have to endure her disapproving sighs as she inspects the cash in the envelope right then and there. Then why am I expected to foot the bill for their extracurricular activities? When I mention it to my mom or brother, they react with disbelief, unable to fathom such audacity from my sister-in-law because they've never witnessed it. That's the thing. Behavior only surfaces when we're alone. She's quite cunning. During the recent New Year's holiday, she wasted no time opening the gifts I gave to my nephew and niece while my brother stepped out briefly to assist my mom. With a disdainful tone, she remarked, "Is this all? Your gift is quite meager. How destitute are you, you tightwad?" It's yet another instance that my mom and brother struggle to believe. I've contemplated recording her behavior, but the potential fallout on family dynamics holds me back. I can't risk damaging relationships. After all, my mom cherishes her 3 grandkids dearly. If my grievances lead to my sister-in-law avoiding visits, it would deprive my mom of precious time with her grandchildren. That would be heartbreaking for her, so I opt to stay silent. If I can simply brush off her hurtful comments, perhaps things will calm down. That's what I believed until circumstances took a sharp turn. One weekday, my sister paid a visit. With my brother at work and me working from home, it was just the 2 of us. My mom was at a senior daycare center, the kids were at daycare, and they were due to visit their maternal grandparents afterward. In this rare moment, my sister-in-law came to see me alone. I was puzzled by her unexpected visit on an unusual day, but she wasted no time getting to the point. "I think we should move in here," she declared. I was taken aback. What could she possibly mean by that? "Move in," I echoed, seeking clarification. "Exactly. Our family has been considering it," she confirmed. "By our family, you mean?" I trailed off, trying to wrap my head around the idea. "My husband, our kids, and me," she clarified. "Here, in this house?" I asked, incredulous. "Yes, because I'm pregnant with our 4th child." I couldn't believe it. With 3 kids already, 1 in elementary school, another in kindergarten, and the youngest just starting preschool, they were expecting a 4th. It was impressive, but they currently lived near her parents, who likely provided support as they were doing today. So, I couldn't help but wonder, what would be the advantage of moving here? "John's getting transferred here. That's the scoop," she revealed. John, my brother, now I recall him mentioning this. "Seems there's a plan to open a branch office right here in our hometown. Who's eager for a branch office gig?" I asked. "John, apparently," she replied. He had volunteered for the position with enthusiasm. It made me wonder how personnel decisions could be so casually made. "Are you okay with this, sis? Wouldn't it be better to stay closer to Mom and Dad?" she inquired. "Mom and Dad are still working, so I can't lean on them too much. They start to fret if I ask too often, lecturing me with check with your husband first or stop delaying parenthood, assuming parents are the ultimate fallback. Mentioning a 4th child would just add to the stress." "Fair enough, that's your call. I'm not in the loop," I responded. "I could empathize with your parents' viewpoint." My brother mentioned how he takes on household chores after work, cleaning, laundry, and even cooking dinner. My sister-in-law confirmed it. It's true. Despite his work fatigue, my brother has always been considerate and helpful. Maybe that's why he seemed worn out whenever I saw him. Still, isn't expanding the family a bit daring? I questioned. "Life is a blessing, a joyous occasion," she countered. I'm not one to say, "Stop having kids." But why the move to our place? My confusion must have been evident. My sister-in-law explained, Dealing with my parents is a hassle, and our current location is too isolated and inconvenient. Instead of leaving John to fend for himself here, we thought it'd be better for all of us to move in together. Well, there are plenty of daycare options around here, right? So, Catherine, could you please find a place of your own soon? My sister-in-law's words left me dumbfounded. What on earth was she suggesting? I'm about moving in. Let's discuss that with my mom and brother. But why should I be the one to leave? Think about it. We'll soon be a family of 6, right? I reasoned. That's true, she conceded. So won't this house be too cramped? I continued. Well, I suppose, she reluctantly agreed. Then why are you telling me to leave? I pressed. I don't understand. Yes, 6 people is a lot, but 8 of us, including my mom and me, can manage living together. Sure, when the kids grow up, sharing individual rooms may become necessary, but worrying about that seems premature. Growing increasingly frustrated by my confusion, my sister-in-law raised her voice. Look, you're in the way. You're childless and getting older. For our sake, move out, and don't go too far. You'll still need to help with the kids, she demanded. After her tirade, she abruptly left, urging me to vacate the premises soon. We need to have a family meeting. That evening, I briefed my mom on Susan's remarks and dialed my brother. His response caught me off guard. I've arranged a separate house for my family, he disclosed. Sure, I've been traveling a lot for work, and I know it's been hard on Susan, but is she really that unhappy in the countryside? His confusion was palpable over the phone. There was still something unclear. Despite this, Susan's plan to move in with us was seemingly put on hold, or so I thought. After a long stretch of working from home, I returned to the office one day. My mom was staying overnight at the daycare, worn out from work. When I got back home, I was met with a shock. What? My room? Completely empty. It felt surreal. Where had all my belongings gone? I got rid of them. All of them. Susan's voice startled me from behind. Turning around, there she was. Susan, what are you doing here? I exclaimed. Shh, you'll wake the kids, she hushed me. What kids? You'll wake the kids? What kids? I questioned, bewildered. The 3 kids are here until the beds arrive tomorrow. They're sleeping on the living room couch, Susan explained. Rushing into the living room, I found my nephews and niece fast asleep. What's happening? I demanded, still trying to process the situation. Susan, looking amused and somewhat speechless, chuckled. You wouldn't budge, so I had to resort to drastic measures. I'm not leaving. I've already discussed this with my brother. Do you think you can just do as you please? Do you realize how many people you're inconveniencing? I retorted. Who's the one doing as they please here? I'm the one inconvenienced. I wanted to snap back, but I held my tongue, mindful of the sleeping children. Susan, however, disregarded my restraint and declared loudly, Who cares what your mother or brother says? If you move out and our family moves in, they wouldn't object. That's for sure. What? Where's all my stuff? I exclaimed, bewildered. I had a junk removal service take it all away. Susan replied casually. No way. You got rid of everything, even my photo albums. This is unbelievable, I protested. Come on, if you understand, then leave. Susan insisted. What? Hold on. Let's not argue. I resisted, but she easily overpowered me and ejected me from the house. It was nighttime, and causing a scene wouldn't help. She ignored the doorbell and my calls. With no other option, I spent the night at a budget hotel. The next day, I took a day off from work and hurried home. As I reached for the door, Susan emerged. Oh, Susan, I exclaimed, trying to reach my brother, but to no avail. Let's talk anyway. My husband is on a long business trip abroad, and the time difference makes it hard to reach him. You know I was on my way out, so make sure you take care of my kids. With Susan's abrupt departure leaving me stunned, I had no choice but to look after the 3 children. When my mom returned home that evening, I greeted her with a bitter expression. Mom, isn't this a bit too much? It's certainly excessive to disregard John's input and act so assertively. Leaving the kids behind and going out is unbelievable. If she needed to leave them with someone, her own parents would have been the logical choice. I concurred with my mother. And what are the actual advantages of living here? Plus, she went out all dressed up. There might be a clue in that, I added, pondering. In agreement with my mother's assessment, I promptly enlisted the services of a private investigator. A month later, I found myself in a hurried search for a 1-bedroom apartment as temporary accommodation. Susan had completely redesigned my room in my parents' house, rendering it unrecognizable. John was livid, admonishing her, "You can't just do whatever you want." But she seemed to argue that moving in would be better than their current residence. She also made comments like, "You're often away for work, right?" I thought it'd be nice for the family to stay together, so I tagged along. Raising children is truly challenging. It's only natural to live close to family and seek their assistance, he reasoned. When he mentioned that my mother required care, Susan retorted, "Catherine does, doesn't she? She's always at home. She must have plenty of free time." "I'm not just sitting around. I'm actually working from home." I defended myself, but Susan remained resolute about not allowing me back into the house. "You can't think you'll get away with this forever. We need to talk," I asserted, lacking support from my brother, prompting a family meeting. "Why the sudden urgency? I'm pregnant. Let's make this quick, okay?" Susan grumbled, though her belly showed no visible signs yet. Disregarding her complaint, the four of us, my brother, Mom, Susan, and I, gathered in the living room. "By the way, we've left the kids at a weekend daycare. Susan, first off, please apologize for disposing of my belongings without my consent," I requested. But Susan scoffed at my words. "It's your own fault for not leaving sooner." Without hesitation, she added, "People like you, who can't even have kids, should just live in a rundown apartment." "Yes, it's true I can't have kids, but I was living here for Mom's sake," I countered. "But your mother-in-law would enjoy living with her grandkids more than with you," Susan asserted, glancing at my mom. Mom replied diplomatically, "Living with my grandkids would certainly bring me joy." However, Susan cut her off with a triumphant smirk. "See, it's more meaningful for us to live together than with an unproductive person like you." Ignoring Susan's taunt, Mom continued, "If they were my real grandchildren." "Ha!" Susan was bewildered, not grasping my mom's implication. Suddenly, my brother produced a large envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "The findings of your affair investigation," my brother revealed calmly. "Ha!" Susan looked surprised, staring at my brother, who continued unfazed. "You didn't think we'd find out, did you?" "What are you talking about? I never cheated on you," Susan protested. "Really? So these pictures are all fake, then?" my brother retorted, spreading several photos on the table. Among them, "Wait, no," Susan exclaimed, recognizing herself in compromising situations with another man. "I found it odd when you insisted we move away from our parents who were helping with the kids to live here. Sure, the city offers more convenience, but you're not even utilizing childcare services and are relying on Catherine for childcare, aren't you?" "Well, I need a break too. Why not use childcare services like today? It's a waste of money." "Do you think I haven't given you enough money? I'm saving up for our future," you defended. "What's the point when our bank account is empty?" John interjected, presenting the bank book, which indeed showed a balance of 0. "Hey, why are you brushing this off? It's our family's money. I have every right to check. So where's the savings for our future?" Well, it's in a different account," you stammered. "Oh, really? Let's see that bank book then." "I don't have it with me." "Where is it?" John pressed further. Well, Susan hesitated, her lies becoming increasingly apparent. Despite the moderate temperature, sweat formed on her forehead. "Maybe it's in the attic," she finally mumbled. John slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. No more lies. Can you still justify yourself in light of this evidence?" he demanded, pointing to a photo. "Oh, I'm sorry. I made a mistake," Susan confessed, her composure slipping. "You've been having an affair with this man since we got married, haven't you?" John accused. "The guy confessed to me," Susan protested. "What? Why were you talking to him? He has a family too." "He only confessed to me under the condition that I wouldn't tell his wife," John exclaimed. "What? He betrayed me," Susan exclaimed in disbelief. "The one who betrayed us is you." Susan seemed flustered under John's intense glare. Eventually, she regained her composure, the sweat dissipating. "Well, I regret the affair. It won't happen again, I promise. But I think it's best not to divorce. It's not good for the kids to be without their mother, and besides, I'm carrying a new life. You wouldn't want to be separated from your own child, would you?" Turning to me, Susan continued, "You can't expect grandchildren from a childless daughter. And if I take the kids and leave after the divorce, you'll never see your grandkids again. Is that what you want, mother-in-law?" She laughed triumphantly at our silence. See? Exactly. Useless old woman, just a nuisance. It's only natural for her to leave. Susan stomped around, visibly agitated. Then, unexpectedly, my mother spoke up calmly. Well, you who are completely unproductive to me should also leave with your child. Huh? Susan's smile faltered as she looked at my mother in confusion. John then handed her a document. What's this? She asked, puzzled. Huh? DNA test results. Negative. Susan exclaimed in disbelief. What is this? She demanded. It's the result of a DNA test between me and the kids. When did you? John began. That's none of your business. Anyway, the results speak for themselves. None of them are mine. And here are the results confirming your affair, meaning they are indeed your kids. John interrupted, handing her the document. What? Huh? My kids aren't mine. Susan gasped. Meaning they're not my mother's grandchildren. They're complete strangers. I added, stunned by the revelation. No, it can't be true. You're lying. You knew about this, didn't you? You orchestrated this. Susan accused, her voice rising in panic. I didn't. That's what the other guy said. John protested. You told him it's sad that our children can't live together as a family. I interjected, shocked by the revelation. Susan looked as though she might faint any moment, her face drained of color. Then my mom delivered the final blow. So, you're a burden because you can't bear my son's children. Please pack up and leave with the kids and hurry. What? Are you going to throw us out onto the street? These young kids, you monster. Susan cried out, attempting to garner sympathy. The real monster is you. Another voice boomed through the room, causing Susan to whirl around, eyes wide with shock. Dad, why are you here? And Mom too. Standing before us were Susan's actual parents. They've agreed to take all the children once I explain the situation, my dad explained. You foolish daughter. Can there be anything more shameful for a parent to hear? Susan's father's stern words caused her face to pale even further as she sobbed. John, Catherine, I apologize deeply for my daughter's foolishness. We will make sure she faces the consequences. Susan's mother added. Consequences? Hold on, I can't afford that. Susan protested. Will you cover for me, Dad? She pleaded. No way. I'll lend you the money, but you're paying me back even if it takes you a lifetime, her father declared sternly. With that, her father whisked Susan, who was on the verge of tears, away without waiting for a response. Her mother, repeatedly bowing deeply in apology, left a lasting impression. Despite being good parents, they had raised such a daughter. Raising kids is tough, huh? I remarked lightheartedly. Later on, my brother John smoothly went through with the divorce. Her parents cleared the alimony and her expenses from the affair in one go. The kids went back to their grandparents' home. They've been there before, so they're adjusting fine without any confusion. They didn't do anything wrong, John, who had always believed they were his biological children, said with a hint of sadness. It's hard to accept that they're suddenly not yours. I hope John's wounds heal one day, I mused. 3 years later, John found a great partner and had a child of his own. But that's another story. As for Susan, she had her 4th child, and when she tested for paternity, it confirmed it wasn't John's. Under strict supervision from her parents, she worked tirelessly, but she continued her affair. Eventually, her infidelity was exposed to her lover's wife, leading to a major confrontation. After the intense altercation, Susan faced more alimony payments, and it appeared she was ejected from her parents' home. Her whereabouts remained a mystery thereafter. As for me, I continued to lead a tranquil life, caring for my mother as always. Remarkably, all the belongings she disposed of were swiftly recovered by contacting the waste disposal company on the same day. On one such serene day, a familiar face greeted me unexpectedly. It had been quite some time. Before me stood the man I had once envisioned marrying. I couldn't forget about you, and I've remained single all this time. Even my parents have relented, albeit for a somewhat selfish reason. With my brother now married and having a child, they've told me I'm free to pursue marriage as I please, he confessed, a gentle smile adorning his face. Caught off guard, he presented me with a ring. It may be belated, but I can't imagine being with anyone else. I want to support you in caring for your mother. So will you marry me? Overwhelmed, tears welled up in my eyes. Without hesitation, I embraced him tightly, his tender smile